Today I'm testing out a new microphone, the Stellar X2 from TechZone Audio Products. And you may notice this beautiful blue backdrop. It's a green screen right behind me. I'm in a different spot in the room because this seemed to be the most acoustically dead and best spot for testing. I'm comparing it today to the MXL 990, which has been my trustworthy mic for almost a decade. This is the usual mic that I use to record my voice for all my YouTube videos, as well as whenever I'm recording singing. All the audio for this is going to be unprocessed, aside from volume matching the signals. I do have the input gains so that both of these mics are recording at roughly the same level. However, the 990 is not as sensitive. Now, the Stellar X2 came to me by way of a distributor who gave it to me for free, which I appreciate, for an honest review. The Stellar X2, as of when I bought it, was $170 in the US. The 990 goes for somewhere around $80. The Stellar X2 is essentially a commercially produced modded microphone. It has a relatively generic housing and an upgrade capsule and circuit. So it should perform as well as mics that cost many times as much as it, in theory. Does it? Well, again, I can't say directly for myself. You can check out a number of other comparisons on YouTube if you want to see it up against those kind of mics, and I would say it generally fares pretty well. The manufacturer compares it with the Neumann U87, and at least from the tests I've seen, I wouldn't say it always compares favorably. It depends. Sometimes it seems to do very well compared to it. Other times there seems to be a pretty big difference, but regardless of that, does it sound good? We know it has high quality components, and it does have a low noise floor. It does have a premium capsule, so I think in general, it's a good sounding microphone. Compared to the MXL 990, I think it has a brighter and clearer sound, perhaps more neutral. Definitely has better noise floor performance than the 990 as well. And overall, it's not a bad value for the money. There are other mics in this price range that may be better, and again, I can't say for sure myself. For my voice, I like the sound of the X2 better. Now, I have a relatively deep voice, and so the extra brightness and clarity this has on the top end, I think, is a nice thing. And the 990 is maybe perhaps a fuller sound. It's certainly a bit of a darker sound, but I think on my voice, the X2 performs better. So I'm doing a little acoustic guitar testing here, and I've got both mics set up with the capsules as close as I can get them because position when you're doing any acoustic guitar is very important, and I don't want to give one mic an advantage over the other. So they're set up, as you can see in my B camera here, pretty close together, not 100% the same, but this is as close as I can get them, so hopefully that does the trick. After the acoustic stuff, I'm going to move over to the electric on the 412. I don't usually use condensers for that, but I figured I might as well see how they perform. I'm not a huge fan of the sound of the 990 recording electric guitar, so hopefully I like the X2 better. Here's a quick noise floor test. I've got the preamps on these both at 0 on the interface, so whatever noise they have, I may boost up in post so that you can actually hear it, but the respective levels will be accurate because there's no preamp gain on either. So the one with the louder noise floor loses. other thing this has me thinking about is modifying microphones. So I ordered a couple parts for this 990, and I'm going to put in a new capsule and a few new capacitors. It costs more than the mic itself, which might seem a little silly, but for the price of something like this, if you have one or if you can get one used, you can upgrade it for a similar price to what the X2 costs. The X2 might actually be cheaper. I mean, there are capsules out there that alone go for $170. So for the price of that, you may be better off just buying one like this. If you were to compare the price of a really high-end mic that might cost thousands of dollars to the performance you could get by modifying a cheaper mic, it's worth it. And that is essentially what they have done with the Stellar X2. It's a pretty generic and inexpensive housing with a new circuit and a new capsule. And that is where most of the magic comes from. The housing has an impact, but it's not the most important thing. I don't have in front of me the exact model number of this housing, but you can buy similar condenser mics made in China online for like $30 to $40 that are basically the same kit as this mic without the upgrades, of course. And so when it comes to some of the accessories, it does come with a case that is solid enough. It's aluminum. It has one of these sort of generic shock mounts that run about $10 and a foam windscreen. So all of that, the body, the accessories, none of those are really premium or customized or special in any way. They did give it a new paint job, or at least put their logo on it, and it's not a bad looking mic. It is a little smaller than the 990, and I think you can see that here. In a way, the 990 actually feels like a more premium mic. It's certainly a heavy and big mic. So I think the X2 is a good value, and I think it's a good sounding microphone. It does tend to be on the bright side. Now, it's not a thin or weak sounding mic, but it does have a little bit of extra top end clarity that you may like and you may not. The 990, on the other hand, is a more dark and woolly sound. It doesn't have as much. It's not just a lack of brightness. There's also something in the mids that to me feels kind of constrained. I feel like I can get a good sounding voiceover with this mic with a little EQ. As for the mics on their own, I definitely do prefer the sound of the X2. Now, the 990 is billed as a large diaphragm condenser, and I believed that, and it's in a large diaphragm condenser housing. However, this is the same capsule that's in the 991. It's in a slightly different housing. There's a small brass ring around it in this case, which I suppose if you're trying to look through the grill, it might look like a large diaphragm condenser, but it's most certainly not, which is going to give it a different sound. And it does sound different than the 991. They do have a lot of similarities, but this one tends to be a little darker, maybe a little less direct sounding than the 991, which probably has to do entirely with the placement of the capsule and the body. It is louder than the 991 as well, for whatever reason. The 991 is quite a bit quieter, but the X2 is also louder than the 990 and has a better noise floor.
Here is the Stellar X2 with me about 1 inch off the capsule. And here is the MXL 990, also about 1 inch off the capsule, give or take, with no pop filter. Let's go back over to the Stellar X2, and again, this is a case where that little extra presence boost allows you to be right up on the mic if you want that proximity effect, and yet still have nice clarity in your words. It sounds more neutral to me, and it sounds like there's less EQing that I would have to do. This sounds like a usable sound, even though I'm right up on the mic. This is the Stellar X2, about 6 inches from the microphone. And here is the MXL 990, about 6 inches from the microphone. Here is the Stellar X2, about a foot off the mic. And here is the 990, again, about a foot off the mic. So in conclusion, I like the X2. I like it better than the 990. I do have some parts for the 990 coming. I'm going to do some mods. I'll do a video on that, and then we can do another shootout and see how a modded 990 compares to the X2. In the meantime, I think the X2 is better. It's brighter. It's a little more neutral sounding, a little more open in the mids,
It doesn't seem to have a whole lot less bass, but feels almost like there's a kind of a mid bump in the 990 that I don't like as much. It feels a little bit crowded to me. And some of that character, yeah, you could EQ it, but if it doesn't have a great sound to begin with, it may be kind of a pain to EQ. Sometimes there are things in a character that you can't quite deal with, and that is the case, I would say, with the 990. And I can EQ it to sound passable, especially for YouTube, but is it like a pro level voiceover mic? No. Am I a voiceover pro? Absolutely not. For my purposes, either one works for making YouTube videos, but I do think the X2 is better, and it's not a bad value when you consider what it costs to modify a mic. If you are looking to buy this mic and you would like a discount on it, you can get 10% off at the link below. It is an affiliate link, which gives me a small commission, but it also saves you money, and so we all win, right? As always, please consider liking and subscribing to support the work I do here. I'll put links to everything down below, and I will see you in the next video.